Good evening, everybody. This is the March 10th, 2021 meeting of the Town Center Advisory Commission. And nice to be with you all. The first item on our agenda is to consider the minutes from the February meeting. Does anyone have any comments or changes that they would like to see reflected in the minutes?
I do. I'm need to refresh myself on how to raise my hand. But am I making myself heard?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Under paragraph 1, I believe that it was Chair Ruggieri who called the meeting to order.
I think you're right about that, Tom.
I'll make that correction. Sorry about that.
And for the record, it's Ruggiero. Not a big deal. I'm not the only one that's had their name mispronounced in one of these meetings, but thank you, Tom. Anything else? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands.
That the minutes be approved with the change to paragraph 1.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been seconded. Any further discussion? Okay. So I'll just call people out to for their vote. Vice Chair Hancock.
Approve.
Renette.
Approved.
Adrian. Seems we're not with Adrian, or he's not with us. So Chris Mitchell also is not with us. Tom Murphy.
Approve.
Tim.
Approve.
Kate.
Approve.
I approve. That's Ryan, sorry. Elise.
Approve.
Chris Sholin.
Approve.
Doesn't look like we have Chris Cash here this evening. Justin.
Approve.
Cam.
Approve.
And Derek.
Approve.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? Apparently not. Okay. Thank you all. The minutes are approved unanimously. Do we have any non-agenda items that folks would like to bring up under agenda item 12 later on in the meeting? Okay. It appears not. And we are apparently without any public comments this evening. So with that, we'll move to agenda item 5, follow-up from previous meetings. Sean, floor is yours.
So I don't believe there is any follow-up from the previous meeting, but there was a question that came up in our agenda setting meeting from the vice chair about when he thought, when I thought that in-person TCAC meetings would return, and it's still unclear. We're going to follow the state's guidance on that, and with the city council meeting, what if they do return to in-person, then we would start planning in-person TCAC meetings. But we're really going to follow the lead of the state.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Do you have any sense as to, I mean, I have not been following the governor's pronouncements extremely closely, but do you or your colleagues at the city have a sense as to when, you all are going to be returning to some form of in-person work, or the city council or TCDA? Any sense of that?
Yeah, not completely clear. I mean, there are many employees who are going to the office every day, are frontline employees. But those who can work at home are continuing to work at home. And I would suspect that it's going to be, when a good number of us are vaccinated. So that would be probably early summer.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion right now. I don't have any final word or inside information.
Great. So from what I've been reading, May seems to be the month for local and state government workers. Is that your understanding too? Would you say that you and Joe and others, Councilor Goodhouse, fall within that category?
Possibly Councilor Goodhouse, but for government employees, I think the priority is going to be the people who are, out dealing with the public, the building inspectors, police officers, library workers, things like that.
Yeah.
For us office folk, we might not be on that first eligibility tier.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard about counselors or elected officials. I haven't really seen or heard where we fall in that category. So,
Yeah. More to come on that, no doubt.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
I think Scott has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, on that, in that order, I had talked to the director of the library just this last week because of something else. And she had just made it a statement that she was going to be meeting with the city manager in the next 2 weeks, or about in 2 weeks, because they were talking about a date for opening up the library. And so there may be something just coming up in as short as a couple of weeks. I don't know if you heard anything about that or not, Sean.
Had not heard that specific information, no.
Okay, well, kind of a ray of hope and just passing that on.
Yes, we'll take them. Rays of hope are worth a lot right now. Elise?
Hi, Ryan and Sean. I can tell you that what's happening in the churches right now is they were at 25% capacity, and we just got boosted to 150 people in our 650 person church. So they're making that change right now, and they're only there for an hour. But that's where the churches are in Washington County. So 25% capacity.
Thanks, Elise. That's helpful. Mm-hmm. So is your church, if I may ask, offering multiple services that can accommodate more than that 25%?
Yes, we offer multiple services on the weekend as well as daily throughout the week.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands raised. Let's move to executive session training and political campaigning with Shelby, our city attorney. Shelby, floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I think I've had a chance to meet a good majority of you, but not all of you, hopefully someday in person. So tonight I just wanted to quickly go through some rules for both executive sessions and elections, with the substantial amendment coming up on the ballot, and then some property transactions off in the distance. Sean and I thought this might be a good opportunity to just do a little refresher or introduction, as the case may be. So I think, Sean, you circulated both of the documents in advance?
That's right.
Okay, perfect. So you have a quick memo basically outlining executive sessions. So an executive session is recognized by statute as a closed meeting, but it's still considered a public meeting. And so we still have to give notice of it, even though the public can't attend. We still have to treat it like a public meeting. And most importantly, they can only be held for limited purposes. And the statute specifically spells out what those purposes are. And if anyone has any questions along the way, please feel free to raise your hand or just jump in. So the statute lists the purposes for which we can hold an executive session, and it can only be that purpose. So real property transactions is probably the one that you're going to see the most. The handout has the information or the language from the statute. It's to deliberate with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. A property transaction include a purchase and sale or a long-term lease. But we can't talk about general policies or space planning or visions. Anything like that has to happen in a public meeting. So the way it would work is if we had a property transaction before us that was part of a bigger picture, we can talk about what the terms are of the lease or the terms of the purchase and sale agreement. We can talk about that in executive session, but if we want to talk about how it fits into the bigger picture, that has to be in open session. So we have to be careful when we're talking in executive session that it has to be limited to that purpose. So I don't know if Sean interrupts during meetings, but I find myself interrupting during council meetings. Councilor Goodhouse can attest to that. Anytime the conversation seems to stray a little bit, making sure to bring it back specific to that purpose, because that's the only reason why we're allowed to hold a meeting that is outside of the public. So the other one that you might see is exempt public records. That's the second list. There's a bunch in the statute that don't pertain to this. So it would be like labor negotiations or litigation are common ones. But the other ones that you're most likely to see would be exempt public records. And this would be like an attorney-client privilege memo from me to the board, basically outlining the legal risks of a decision. So it would be an exempt public record. The purpose of the meeting would only be to discuss what is in that document itself. We couldn't talk about anything else. So executive sessions, in addition to being limited to the specific statutory authority, no final decisions can be made in executive session. So a lot of times I'll describe it as we're looking for a head nod because we can't make a final decision, but we do want guidance from the board or from council about what the direction they want to go is. And so we call it a head nod, thumbs up. It's not a final decision. You're not taking any formal action, but we do want to know, are we on the right track? Do you like the concept? Do you not like the concept? What do you think about it? So it's not a final decision, but we are looking for direction. And then finally, the media. So in Tigard, we haven't had a lot of media lately attending our meetings or executive sessions, but by law, they are allowed in most executive sessions. But they cannot report on the content so long as the chair directs them to not do it. So in the script for an executive session, it'll start by saying the board convenes under ORS 192.660 point whatever, and then it'll be followed by media are allowed to attend but may not report on the topics. And so as long as the chair reads that script verbatim and states that you can't, that the media can't report on that, the media cannot include anything that they hear in a public article. So they can listen, but they can't report on it. And the other side of that, though, is that they are under no obligation to treat the information that they hear in executive session confidential if they obtain it from another source. And so, for example, if a member of the media were to come up to you after executive session and say, you know, I heard in the meeting that you do or don't like this proposal, you know, what are your favorite things about it? And if you were to then talk to the person, talk to the media representative, anything that you say outside the executive session is totally public. And so if the media obtains the information other than in the executive session, even though the topic was a protected topic, anything independently obtained is fair game. So it's really important to make sure to keep executive session conversations only in executive session, because that's the only way that the city can actually protect that information. So that's the gist of executive sessions. Is there any questions on that? Yes, Ryan.
Thanks, Shelby. So just to clarify on point 3 there, no final decisions may be made in executive session. So I definitely understand the head nod part, and that's great. So let's say we were considering, or let's say Sean brought a property acquisition to the commission, and we discussed it in executive session, and we got a general read on support for or against acquiring a piece of property. We would then, as I understand, move out of executive session, and at some later point in time, whether it's 30 seconds later or at the following meeting, we would then in a regular meeting, Sean would bring that property acquisition to the commission, and we would vote to support or recommend its purchase to the TCDA in a public forum. Am I understanding that right?
So it could go a couple ways. That it could go that way. I guess I would say it depends on how confidential the interest that the board wants to express is. And so if the thinking, like, we have executive sessions with city council where we discuss property acquisitions, and the public doesn't know what property is being acquired or what the discussions are or anything like that. The public sees it at the point of the purchase and sale agreement or the donation. Whatever transaction it is actually before them for approval. And so you're correct that if it was something where where the board was wanting to make a formal recommendation to council, you're correct that they would discuss it in executive session and then the recommendation would be formal. If it was a situation where there was no formal recommendation, it was just kind of a, let's discuss this property, but we've got a lot of work to do on it still. We're going to have a bunch more discussions before we let the public know that we're looking at this. Then you would want to keep it in executive session and kind of push out the final decision. Does that clarify that?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Tom. Tom's hand was up and then down.
Tom, did you have a comment?
You're still
Or
muted,
question?
Tom.
I do. It helps if I unmute myself.
It does, yes.
Shelby, I wanted to, I'm curious what the mechanics are of executive session during pandemic precautions. Is it simply turning off the recorder and shutting off any visitors other than media types for the duration of the executive session, or is it something more sophisticated?
Yes, no, it is the former. That is the extent of the sophistication. So yes, in a non-pandemic world, we meet in a private room with the doors closed and we don't record the sessions. In a COVID era health precautions, we have attendance is limited to the team's invites that we send out. If a member of the media wants to attend, he or she has to contact the city recorder to get an invite. and then they are not recorded, they're not broadcast or aired. So it's just this meeting, and then the meeting goes away, basically.
Thank you.
All right, Brian?
Sorry, I one clarification. So another agenda item that we're going to discuss tonight involves a property transaction by a third party. I'm assuming that is not what is subject to these requirements. That what we're talking about here is really real property transactions that the city would be undertaking. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes. Good
Okay.
clarification. It's only if the city is either the buyer, seller, lessee, lessor.
Great, thank you.
All right. So if there aren't any other comments, we'll switch to elections. So basically, your role as board members on a city board means that you are considered public officials or public employees for purposes of state elections law. And so what that means is that you have an obligation to be neutral on any political measure or member. So you cannot, as a public employee, support or endorse a measure or member or candidate. You always have your First Amendment rights as a private individual. And so if you want to sign a petition, donate to a campaign, help on a campaign, you can always do that in your private capacity, but you cannot do it in your public capacity. So the distinction is you cannot say, as a member of the TCAC, I support or I oppose the urban renewal measure, but you can say, I, as a Tigard resident, support or oppose the urban renewal measure. So that is triggered. The timing of that is triggered by when the measure is referred to the county elections office. So generally, we treat that in Tigard as whenever council votes to approve the ballot title and authorize the city recorder or the city elections officer to file that with the county. So that has already happened in the urban renewal measure. So from that point on, everything that the city sends out has to be factual and neutral. So if somebody asks a question about it, you can absolutely say, as a member of the TCAC, I can tell you what urban renewal is, but you cannot say, as a member of the TCAC, I can say urban renewal is good or bad. So you have to be educational and factual in everything that you say as soon as the measure is referred. So this applies to all public employees. It does not apply to elected officials. And so our counselors, the state law basically provides that they were elected to have political opinions. That's why we elected them, is that we support or oppose what they support or oppose, and we expect them to advocate for or against policies. So they are expected to have political opinions and to voice political opinions. But we as staff are expected to be totally neutral. And you as board members are expected to be totally neutral. So the TCAC cannot take a position endorsing or opposing a member. So there shouldn't be any voting on any measure, whether to take a position on it. That would be something that only council does. And even when council takes a vote, staff isn't allowed to, say, draft a resolution in support or prepare something to draft a letter that says we support and then have council sign it. Staff is supposed to let council do that. We're only supposed to do just the bare minimum. So we can record votes, we can certify a resolution, but we can't actually draft a resolution of support. So that's all provided in state law. The elections office, the state elections office with the Secretary of State's office has great resources. But if you have any questions, if you go to their website, you can find some great information, or I'm certainly happy to help clarify. But that's the general gist of it. So are there any questions on elections law? Yes, Ryan.
Yeah, sorry, I have to keep raising my hand.
No worries. That's what I'm here for.
So the measure has been referred to the ballot, if I'm correct at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in this period of sensitivity around political campaigning, so everybody should be aware of that. Great, thank you for clarifying that. And thank you for the really helpful information about both of these topics. I think we really, it's very timely, obviously, but I really appreciate your time and your willingness to come and educate us on this stuff. It's super important, and we want to make sure we do it right. So
Yeah, no,
thank you.
absolutely. Thank you for your service. I want to make sure to give you guys the best information, keep everybody out of trouble.
Yeah, we definitely want to stay out of trouble.
Yes, I support that.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelby.
Just
Thank
one
you.
other thing. So like, I sent out an FAQ sheet by email, I think on Monday. And so that's been reviewed by the Secretary of State. So, you know, that's the kind of neutral, factual information that you are definitely welcome to share, even as a member, you know, as your capacity as a TCAC member, because it goes kind of just down the line and just factually, you know, describes what the amendment would do. And we'll be providing a few more of those sheets. We have a couple things that are under review at the Secretary of State's office. They sent back one thing saying it was too pro, so we'll be revising that and getting that signed off. We're also producing a video that'll be factual, and there's an agenda item on this a little bit later in the agenda, so I'll talk more about that public engagement plan.
Sean,
yes,
Sean, Councilor Goodhouse, which part did they say was too pro? Sorry.
Oh, well, it's not the one that I sent out. It's another one. There's like facts about
was about
substantial amendment.
Was a ballot measure fine?
Not what you did. No, not this. The ballot title or the
okay.
Explanatory. This is another piece of public engagement information that we were going to distribute.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, so to clarify what Sean's talking about is the Secretary of State's office does what they call a safe harbor review. And so it's a process under statute where the Secretary of State's office will review explanatory information, factual information, and they will decide if it is okay or not based on their understanding of the statutes. If they think it is, they'll give us a little footer on it that says this has been reviewed for safe harbor compliance in accordance with ORS, blah, blah, blah. And that means that anybody that reads it and says, I think that's for or against, the city is 100% protected from any elections complaints if we have that safe harbor review. If we don't, then there is a risk that somebody could make a complaint to the Secretary of State's office and say, you know, the city was really advocating for or against this measure, and the Secretary of State's office would do an investigation, and we could be subject to civil penalties for that. So it's sometimes a frustrating process because everybody's view of what is or is not neutral is sometimes subjective and different. But it is, we like to do it when we can, just because it provides us that 100% guarantee that there's not going to be an elections complaint. The ballot title and the explanatory statement in the voters pamphlet are totally separate. So the city council drafts the ballot title, staff does the explanatory statement with council input, and those are entirely outside of the process. So there's a specific ballot title challenge period. Ours has passed, nobody challenged ours, and so as a result of that, it is deemed acceptable. So those are the two processes for review.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shelby. I really appreciate you being with us tonight and helping get us all comfortable with what we're heading into, going into the spring.
Certainly. You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. All righty. We are on to the Universal Plaza design update with Peter Emerson from Rios. Peter, do you go by Peter or Pete?
Peter.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying. I just want to say before Peter starts, I've been part of the Universal Plaza design, I can't remember what we're called, advisory group or something like that.
Right.
And it's been a really great process. We've had exceptional participation, I feel like, at least from members of the community and folks that really have had a lot to offer the process, I think. I hope Peter agrees. But I also just want to call out Rios and the great work that I think they've done to, really see our community for what it is and what it needs in this space and respond in a way that I personally think is really impressive. And I think we're all going to be really proud of what Universal Plaza becomes. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because I just, every time I walk by it with my dog, I'm just super excited about it. It's going to be a great place. It's going to be a draw. It's going to be a community asset that we will be really thankful for generations to come. And that's a big deal. And this commission is going to hopefully continue to support the work, the project itself. And it's just, I think it's going to just pay huge dividends for the community moving forward. So just wanted to say that. And with that, Peter, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Not quite sure how I follow that. That's very kind. And I would also agree that it's been a really wonderful process. Just to confirm, can everybody see my screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
I can. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Just give me one more. There you are. Okay. Well, it's been a really great process. As Ryan said, I think the community engagement aspect of it with the Design Advisory Committee is unique and really spun out of a response to COVID. Been a part of a lot of community outreach meetings. And these series of meetings are the only ones where everybody's had a voice. And oftentimes they've had a voice more than once in a single meeting. And so I think that the format we developed with Sean and others at the city is a real inspiration and will guide us in projects that we do down the road. So we're here to update you on the design progress for Tigard Universal Plaza. We will be sharing the work that's been done both in terms of a long-term vision and a near-term project, which is pretty well underway. We just wrapped up design development phase, and we are just in the process of starting to get a contractor on board. And we will be starting construction documentation in July. So the images we're going to share tonight are a little bit more colorful and depict the vision of the place, but behind all of this, we're really ramping up on the technical side of this as well. So just to orient everyone here to this plan, Burnham Street is on your right. B&B Printing is the large building here. Fano Creek on the left, the Fano Creek Trail, and our site, tucked between downtown and the Fano Creek, which is a really interesting location, a little bit challenging, but it's turning out to be a real gem. One of the challenges with a site like this, and it was sort of the first challenge that we saw with it when we were brought on board, was that there was no access from the back of the site to anywhere else. So that creates a bit of a sense of maybe danger or uncertainty about whether or not you're safe in a place when you only have one way to get out. And so for us, it was really important to come first off with a plan to deal with that. So the first thing I want to point out is that we have a pedestrian and bike and maintenance access running east-west here from Burnham, and a proposed boardwalk that will connect you to the Fano Creek Trail, just about where the bridge is located. That planning is underway. It'll basically coincide, the permitting and all of that, with our project. So that is moving forward, and we're excited that that is a big part of making this place a success. In terms of circulation, the site is really organized that you can come in from both corners on Burnham. You can also come in from the Fano Creek Trail connection. And we've created this figure-8 circulation pattern, which really brings everybody to the center of the place. And located at that center is an interactive water feature where I'll share some photos and sketches towards the end of the presentation, but this thing is really dynamic. It has multiple functions. So starting at the surface, it's a fountain that could be turned off and be used as a plaza. So all you have to really do is flip a switch and it goes dry and you can use it. Then we've layered on a scrim pool, which is basically like a ½ inch of water over the surface that you can walk through or run through or splash through. We have, in addition to that, interactive jets, which create these tunnels and interesting places for kids to run in and through and under and around. And then the last part of the feature, which is really great for, I think, older folks and people walking through at night, and people enjoying town, is a mist feature. So this thing will have the ability to create some mist, and that really picks up the light at night in an impressive way. We've located what we're calling the Burnham. Here, let me zoom in a little bit more. That's better. We've located these porch swings. You'll see an image of those in just a second, where you can face either Burnham Street towards Main Street or back into Fano Creek. We have two what we're calling event lawns, or these are what we think of as pretty high use turf lawns. The scale of those has shrunk a little bit, and we have a little bit more hardscape as the design develops. But those are flexible use space. It keeps it kind of green and cool on a day-to-day basis, but for events, it could be occupied. On the south side of the property, what you see here is a large shade canopy and rain canopy. And there's two structures associated with that. The first is a community room here towards Burnham Street, and the second is a restroom facility with concessions, storage, some mechanical stuff, and that'll be part of phase 1 here. Then we're proposing on the north side of the site that there will be an evergreen edge to kind of clean up and create a 4-season green edge. Along what we're calling the community dining table. So this thing will be pretty fantastic. It's like 80 feet long or something. Super cool. We think that, there should be some grills associated with that, multiple grills so that people come and they mingle together. They may be neighbors, but they might not know each other. So we think that's a pretty great way for people to interact and meet. And then at the far west side of the site, we're developing a boulder field. And, one of the driving ideas behind this, even before we got on board, was this idea of, this plaza representing the four, elements, earth, wind, fire, and water. And so we're looking into the possibility of actually having a few or some of these boulders be warm in the wintertime. And that'll just be a wonderful surprise for people wandering through, and a warm place to sit, more importantly. There is a requirement, and we're working through some details of that, to create a landscape buffer on the west edge. And so it does kind of pull up towards the restroom here. We will be dealing with stormwater management in that area and the interface to the Fana Creek and wetland associated with it. So now we get to the fun part where we get to see this vision in 3D. We're elevated here rather, above Burnham Street, looking back towards Fana Creek. And we went through a number of iterations, studies with the team at the city to talk about how we can really incorporate a community asset here and meet all the goals of the project. Around having obviously we need things like restrooms, and but then to also have a little bit of incubator space or community space. So concessions and a community room that can really activate this place for seasons. So what we did, and a really important part of that is what can we do in phase 1 that we don't need to undo in phase 2. So I'll show you phase 1 in a few minutes, but essentially we're going to be able to build this back here now, and then come in and build the structure in the community room later without undoing much of the work that we're doing in phase 1. The idea behind this canopy is that on the east side, or the Burnham side, it's actually facing towards Main Street, and as you work your way back towards Fana Creek, it opens up to the creek side. It's a really simple structure, although really creates a dynamic experience. The plaza in phase 2 really enlarges a little bit between those buildings, a great place for movable tables and chairs. And you can see here that light gets through it, but we'll have areas that will be rain covers. We'll have areas that'll be open to the sky, and so this singular roof can actually do multiple things. It doesn't have to be a solid roof the whole way. So we envision that being articulated in more detail as we move forward. Front and center is this idea of a porch swing on Burnham, and these aren't like play swings, they're more like rocker swings. And you can see the configuration allows for people to sit facing Burnham or facing back towards Universal Plaza. And this is just kind of a delightful way of entering and experiencing the place. As you move in from Burnham, the water feature is really intended to be front and center to draw you in. The position of this is situated so that it actually captures the light as it's moving across the sky on the southern side of the site. And our water feature designer has really convinced us all that it'll be a really wonderful perspective as you enter from Burnham. The community dining room table is here at the right. You can catch a glimpse of that here, and that layering of activity happening. We are thinking about planting as a four-season element. And evergreens are important. There's also plant structures and forms that really are impressive over the course of the year. what you're seeing here is an idea about incorporating early spring blooming patches of crocus in the lawn. We know some of resilient species that'll do super well here. And so you can see here, looking back towards the community room, Burnham Street over here, we really envision that as being able to open up in the summertime and provide a warm place in the winter. You can get a kind of closer look of how that opens up to this main pedestrian connection to Fano Creek. We're looking back from the second lawn, the back lawn, towards Burnham, and seeing how all these elements sort of stitch together right there in the middle where everybody's gonna, interact. All paths lead to this location. Just a closer glimpse of the structure we'll be building in phase 1. And the other major threshold, thankfully, now that we can have a connection to the Fano Creek, is this view coming from the boardwalk and overlook, entering from the west side, the southwest corner. And you can imagine this place without this connection, and that would be a totally different experience. So we're really excited this is becoming a part of the project. So what do we do now? In phase 1, we have many of the exciting elements that we've been talking about so far. The porch swings, the water feature, the boulder field, the circulation, the lawn panels, and this kiosk and restroom facility on the south side of the site. We're excited about this. We know the water feature is going to activate the place. We know it's going to really be a draw. We're looking at ways to use paint and color, simple techniques to really enliven the place, but also relying on a pretty simple palette of materials that are easy to maintain and won't break the bank. And so we've been really fortunate to have a collaborative team there at the city to work through those discussions. It looks at, we're incorporating a little bit more shade than is shown in this image. That's been a big topic of discussion. As you see it come to life, there will be more shade trees in the place. Again, looking at the heart of this place where everybody can come together. And there's a couple references of images here that our water feature designer has shared with us. And his idea for this feature is that it's all about convergence and people coming together here in the middle. And so those two sort of leaf-shaped elements here, you have one kind of running diagonally this way and another diagonally this way, and they intersect. And so those tunnels, let's call them, will be very interactive. They'll be very, they'll create a lot of movement. And in the middle, they'll crash together. And so you see that sort of fine jet of water. It'll be variable, it'll be small, it'll be big. It'll grow, it'll kind of move across the feature. And it'll create a really engaging experience for kids and families. You can see here an example of that in combination with the Scrim Pool. So really opening up a lot more fun, the ability to kind of splash through it, run through it. But that's also something adults can enjoy too. In conjunction with those, we think mist is just a wonderful feature that we can all enjoy without getting soaking wet. And it'll really light the place up at night. And to conclude the presentation here, this is a sketch drawing with a little bit more detail on how that's envisioned to work here. So with that, I don't know if you guys plan to have question and answers or if this is for information only, but please let me know.
Thank you, Peter. That was a really great presentation, and I hope that the commission is as excited about this as those of us who've been working with you on it are. And so let's just go to hands raised. I see Elise has a hand raised.
I think Justin had his hand up before me.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for letting me know that. I didn't see that. Justin, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for a wonderful presentation. I think what you guys have put together here is phenomenal. And I'm really, quite frankly, surprised how you turned it into all that you have. I just have two really quick questions I'll put together. I was wondering if there's any planning surrounding parking, though it's not a major importance because people can walk and bike to the location. Are we planning any parking with the project? But also, is there going to be any framing around?
This is not a valid menu option.
Bike parking, because I just kind of noticed coming in from Fannel Creek, there's even a picture here in the slide where there's a biker on the path. And I just feel like there might be some kind of confliction with bikers and pedestrians on the path in the middle there. And I just didn't see anything for like bike parking in the front by Burnham there or in the back by Fannel Creek there. So that was all I had, but phenomenal job. Thank you for the presentation.
Peter, do you want to take bike parking and I'll take car parking?
Yeah, I would love that, Sean. Do you want to start with car parking?
So yeah, one of the potential projects to be funded by the substantial amendment is a parking structure that would be built in together with a new city hall, city facility, just down the block on Burnham and Hall. So that's one possibility. If that does not come to fruition, we've always thought that in the cases of big events or even smaller events, like Farmers Market, for example, those would mostly be held nights and weekends. And at those times, the existing surface city lots are available. So there would be good synergy there for night and weekend events. So we have that in mind. There's no specific parking being directly designed with this project, but know that we are thinking about that. And then if this parking structure is built with this new city facility, that would provide great opportunity for car parking.
I'm really glad you brought up the farmers market. I had totally forgot to mention something about that. So I'll come back to that just after we talk about bike parking. It's a really good point, and we'll definitely have bike parking. Also drinking fountains for, filling bottles, drinking, and for your dogs. And one thing that isn't depicted in this illustration or any of them, and it's super critical, and I'm kind of embarrassed it's not there, is lighting. And so there is a really thoughtful lighting plan and lighting approach that'll include 3 sort of taller poles with an assortment of lights and a projectors similar to what or exactly like what is projecting the haiku on B&B printing right now. So we're going to reuse those and mount those to 3 poles. We've got one up here in the front, one here kind of centered, and then one towards the back there. In addition to that, we've got more in a pedestrian scale poles that pick up lighting where we need it elsewhere. And then lastly, we have these little path markers running around the perimeter every, I think, 12 feet. And what that does is it creates a really nice, light across the surface of the path. It also demarcates where farmers market tents get put up. So the idea is that you could do a full farmers market loop around this place, and all of the farmers market stands can face inward. They can pull their van or truck through in the morning and set up and pull out and park, and have their all their stuff here. And then you've got this kind of continuous circuit. And I think we're accommodating 42 tents, or we can accommodate 42 tents without going on the lawn. And for bigger events, we can spread out.
Great, thank you. I think Elise was next.
Sure. Thank you very much for addressing the previous bike parking issue. And I know about the parking facility plan in the future, but I really appreciate, Peter, your presentation, because back in 2007, I think, when I started volunteering with the city, it was the idea of a universal plaza plan that we were talking about back then. And that's what drew me into volunteering for the city and helping to plan for that. And of course, it's taken this long to get to where we are now. But one of the things that we had talked about in the past was having outdoor concerts. And I was going to say I didn't see anything that looks like an elevated platform to host musicians or performers, like facing an audience. Is there any planning for that, or has anybody looked at any ideas for that in this space?
Yeah, actually, it's been a big topic of conversation, and we are imagining that it's something that will happen, but won't necessarily happen at a scale that requires permanent infrastructure. One of the challenges with stages is that they're not used most of the time, and so you've got this big bulky thing wherever it sits that's there, and it's kind of vacant most of the time. And there's creative ways where you can incorporate it and make it feel a little bit more integral. But in the discussions we've been having with folks, and we even had a design advisor volunteer who was like an acoustical engineer for ages, and helped us realize that this isn't the place for a huge concert. It's a place for music and gathering, but it's not acoustically. It's not ideal for 2,000 people to show up, so our thinking pivoted or shifted a little bit to really think of this as a smaller, a place for smaller performances, and we've actually located electrical boxes in the paving, flush with the paving, that can get opened up for performers to set up in a variety of places. And so it might, on a Saturday, market day, you might have 3 performers out there just kind of spread out, or there's an opportunity there to actually have multiple things going on at once. Mm-hmm. And then for a larger event, this is kind of an ideal place for an evening setup for a stage. So this is all flush, and then this can go dry, and so you can get an audience looking east, and the sun will be at your back. Mm-hmm. And then you can circulate around it here. Mm-hmm. But it would be temporary.
Thank you. I was not thinking of large concerts, more like the scale of the downtown Sherwood concerts in the park routine that they had going. That was about as big as I was thinking. So thanks.
Oh, sure.
All right.
Thanks for bringing that up, Elise. That's a really great point that I'm glad we had a chance to have Peter respond to. Councilor Goodhouse?
Yeah, usually I don't weigh in on this stuff too much, but the questions kind of were answered already.
You're good then?
Oh, I guess I hit mute, then mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. My questions kind of were answered, but the biggest thing I saw and usually I don't do this, but usually what I saw was, I know there was a big thought of doing farmers markets, and there was, doing bigger kind of concert venue things. I know that I guess we have Cook Park to do it, but, so they were kind of answered already, but my one concern though too with the farmers market is, usually when we have the farmers market there off of Main Street, all the vehicles that drop off and load up and unload, is there enough room for vehicles to drive through there, to be able to drop off, if we were to do a farmer's market, or if we do like a taste of Tigard, or if we had food carts or something that came in there, or trucks that came in there? I know that was one of the big things, is have something that can access, that vehicles can drive through it, get in there, either drop things off or set up, or a bigger area to do a stage, because even though this might not be acoustically sound, this is going to be kind of a heart of downtown where concerts are going to be. And I'd like to see it at least be something where we could have a large turnout of people there.
Mm-hmm. The answer is yes, as it relates to circulation and movement through the park. And since this more conceptual drawing was done, we've been really refining the scale of paths and the offset of paths, and the ability, and creating the ability for vehicles to enter here on Burnham, move through the site, loop around on the west side, and then all the way out on the north side here. And so you'll be able to have a tent and pass by it with the vehicle. And that was sort of our measure of what the appropriate scale is.
What size? Sorry to monopolize the time. What size vehicle? Because if you're talking about a car, that's one thing. But if you're looking at big trucks, what size? Or even if you get a box truck that we're coming in to drop something off, are you talking like a sedan, or is a box truck gonna be able to go through there?
Yeah, and the width is appropriate for a box truck or a pickup truck or a van. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Ham, I think your hand was up next, and then we'll go to Derek.
Yes, so my question was, you mentioned there's a community room in the shaded area. What's the purpose of that community room?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of that question?
I think you mentioned there's going to be a community room in the shed area.
Yeah, right in here.
What will that be used for, or what's the objective of that?
We really think it's a flexible space that different community groups can reserve or use. Think of it as a great place for classes to come and learn about the ecology of Fano Creek. It'll be something that a really wide variety of groups in the community can use. I understand there's a real demand for those spaces and a lack of them currently.
Okay. Also, last time there was a presentation, they said there's going to be food carts. So, but I'm thinking that you mentioned some concession stands, they'll take the place of the food carts. Is that correct?
No, I think the concession stand, concession area is really in addition to the ability to have food trucks here. So the scale of this site in particular is good for food trucks. I also think kind of parking them on the street right there is a good idea. So that it wouldn't replace food trucks for sure.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Derek.
Hello. I have a question. It sounds like you'll have a plan for farmers market and some light things, some events that me and some of the folks on Main Street have been talking about have been beer festivals and cider festivals. And I know that might directly compete with some of the days that the market would want, but there are a number of us that feel that would be a huge draw to the downtown area to bring people down. Is that something that's been considered? I don't know if that's for you, Peter, or John or Sean.
Well, I think it's probably more of a Sean question, but I'll just say early on we discussed the ability of, continuing to use Burnham the way it's been used and augmenting that with this space. So you could think of it as an expansion of the current area. Personally, I like the idea of a beer and cider festival here. So, but I'll let Sean answer.
Beer and cider festival are definite possibilities. There wouldn't be any conflict necessarily with farmers market, just be on a Saturday rather than a Sunday. So we'll have lots of different. It's designed to hold lots of different kind of events, and yeah, for sure, beer and wine, cider, those kind of things we've been thinking about. So the design could accommodate that.
Great. Derek, anything else?
No, that sounds fantastic. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, or I was just questioning whether it was a simple focus on just that, or if there was other things that we were thinking of. It sounds like it's a flexible park and it looks fantastic. My other question or concern would be about security. I don't know if there's a plan on foot patrols by the police at night, or is it just as things come up?
We actually had a meeting that we invited a police officer to, and they said that when it's actually right now as a temporary use, they're occasionally checking out what's going on there, and when it's fully constructed, I'm sure they'll regularly take a look at what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sean. Elise, I'm going to mention a couple things and then
sure.
It'll be your turn.
No problem.
Yeah. So a couple things. One, Derek's question about a beer and cider festival makes me wonder if, there'd be any, and Sean, maybe you and your staff have already done this, and Peter as well, but, maybe there's a role for the commission here, or something we could add, some value we could add in terms of, because we have business owners on Main Street as part of the commission, maybe some sort of programmatic brainstorming we could do about the various things that could happen here. I'm sure that's already happened on some level, but there may be things that are particularly relevant to downtown business owners that would be beneficial to them, that we could explore a little bit as a commission. So I'd put that out there. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention briefly is, Peter, as a part of the design advisory group, I've advocated a couple times for ensuring that there's a connection that can be made if the Stevens Marine property can be acquired. Obviously, like, this whole plaza gets, potentially expanded in an enormous way. But at the very least, I think a connection to the north and west of the plaza to Fano Creek on the east side of the creek is particularly important, just to create as much connectivity as possible. So in terms of the biofiltration area, et cetera, I just would want to ensure that there wouldn't be anything that would inhibit the ability to connect to the north and west, up in that area. in the longer term, because I see that as a really, really important connection to downtown, because the Fano Creek Main Street intersection is such a hub of life in downtown. And I just think it's super important that we retain the ability to make that connection if and when Stevens is ready to sell. So just wanted to put that out there. Elise.
Oh, Ryan, you are optimistic. We have approached them in the past, and I'm hoping maybe in the future they want to retire and sell. I hope so. That's all I can say there. Oh gosh, what was I had my specific question. Could we go back to the other picture, please, that you just had up? Thank you. That might trigger my memory again. I should write this stuff down when I come up with something. Oh well. Oh, I wanted to compliment you on the roof design of the enclosure and shaded area, because I really like the way it makes me think of birds' wings. So the Rios group, I really like to compliment you on that. And then with the TDA has been running programs and events in downtown Tigard for quite a while now, since their inception. And I really think when someone's talking about beer and cider festivals, we need to get together with the TDA, because they have worked in conjunction with former owners of businesses in the past to coordinate a beer festival along with the downtown food fest. And then also, like, the art walk could take place. You know, they could have real artists actually with a real art show in a place like this. So we need to make sure that as a group that we're connecting with them and working with them. So, and the business owners as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise. Chris?
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that I am going to be bringing back the Nano Beer Festival, or a replacement to the Nano Beer Festival. Not necessarily to the old Max's site, but I will be bringing back the festival one way or another. It's something that's super important to me. We started as a brewery at that event. That was the first time we, got in front of people and brought our beer to the public. And I want to make sure that that event stays alive. The guy that owns it right now has taken a major role with Migration Brewing as a general manager of all of their sites, and no longer has time to put that on. So it's for sale, but I'm obviously not going to purchase something that I don't believe really should cost money. I don't think it should make money. I don't think it should be that sort of an event. But there will be the opportunity to put that in some part of downtown. I'd like to involve more businesses rather than just have it be, under a few tents in a field somewhere. I think that's kind of the antithesis of what beer people really want to do, and I think the same is true for wine people and cider people. I don't think any of us want to hang out in a tent. So trying to find a space like this that's very open, that's very possible for lots and lots of people to set up little booths and have it be very community centric, rather than just bringing it back to the pub and having me try and push all of that stuff. I'd rather involve as many other businesses as possible, and we could have other vendors in between all of the beer or cider or wine or whatever. I think this could work for that. But at the same time, if it's not really known as a place where alcohol is consumed in general, that kind of makes it weird for a lot of people. If you look at a place like the Splash Pad over in Progress Ridge, where you've got the Ridge Pizza Place and Ava Roasteria kind of, on either side of it, you can see people, sit out there for 3 or 4 hours in an afternoon because there's food, because there's drink involved. And without some way to make that all happen, I mean, there's some takeout obviously on Main Street. You can grab Beach Hut Deli. You can grab some Thai. There's some food to be had there, and you could obviously bring some from home as well, and sit on the community dining tables there. I think without adding a little bit of access to a couple of businesses that can provide a little more of that food, that's going to be tough for people to really want to hang out for a long time. And I don't know if that's the point or not, but certainly for me, with my children that I have and their age and how long their attention spans are, I could see myself, or at least see them wanting to spend several hours here, and see myself being kind of hoping for something to do while they were running around in the fountain. So
Yeah,
I don't know if there's thoughts being put into how do we get access to other businesses backing this area. And everybody knows I own the pub, but I would be just as happy if Tiger Tap House was, the back of this kind of area, so it was accessible and somehow involved.
Yeah, we're open to all sorts of partnership ideas. We want to satisfy, kids attending and their parents and people without kids. So there's a lot of room for all different kind of events. And yeah, I mean, beer will be permitted in the park under certain rules. We are kind of over time right now. We had a little bit of extra time.
We used it.
Yeah, we did. But unless there's
Justin
any
had his
really,
hand up, but I don't see it up anymore. So shall we move on?
I could quickly just say I'd like to support what Ryan said, because I see a lot of use and connectivity from the north side, especially of the property. So keeping that open would be great. Also, I love the roof design. And also last year, I guess my most important part, it was mentioned in the committee here, the TCAC, that Stevens Marine he owns the property, so he would rather redevelop it than sell. And so I just wonder what part the board or here we can take in framing that decision, rather than maybe pushing him out through rhetoric, if that's understood.
Sounds like a conversation for potentially an executive session, Justin.
Okay, thank you, guys.
well, I would just say that we don't want to push anyone specifically out, but if someone wants to redevelop, we should encourage them to do that.
Yeah, and I just feel it'd be nice to see what the board, the TCAC commission could offer to say, this would complement the Universal Plaza. This would be a nice redevelopment of this property.
Yeah, I think when they see what's planned next door and they know that something's happening here, that might change their equation or change their mind. But they do, as a boat business, they have certain rules about different franchise agreements. Just a lot of details, but that having a plaza like this next door could change their minds about their future.
Yeah, and I would just really quickly add that there's a way to, because of the undevelopable nature of the property that they own that's closest to Fano Creek, there's a potential opportunity to make that trail connection without full ownership of the property or the whole property through a trail easement or something to that effect, because they can't do anything else with it anyway. So I'm going to suggest that we move on to our next agenda item, which is the potential affordable housing development assistance item. So Sean, take it away.
Yeah, so I sent a memo earlier this week. I can't remember when, but it wasn't in your packet originally. But basically describing a potential partnership of an exciting new development that's being proposed by Community Partners for Affordable Housing, SEPA, who've done the Knoll and also Red Rock Creek Commons. And they're interested in applying for our development assistance to site in the Triangle. And we have substantial funds in that affordable housing development assistance fund. So as outlined in the memo, kind of the process here, and the first time we've used this process specifically, that tonight SEPA is going to just basically, give the basic outline of the project, what they're thinking. Staff will review their application and score it, and then we'll come back to the TCAC in April, basically to get their input on my recommendation and consider recommending the development assistance to the board of the TCDA. And then a legal agreement would be entered into on the development assistance. So Rachel Duke is here, and was the other Rachel here too? The Rachels from SEPA?
And a Jillian.
Oh, and Jillian's here. Great. I didn't see her. Are you going to share screen?
Yes, is that okay? I do have a presentation to share.
Great.
And bring it up. One moment. Okay, well, thank you. I want to thank you for giving us a few moments on the agenda. My name is Jillian Siraj Felton. I'm the Director of Housing Development. I'm here today joined by both Rachel Duke and Rachel Lofton. Rachel Duke is our Executive Director. Rachel Lofton is our Housing Developer, and she will be the lead on this project. Whoops, going too fast. So a little bit about Community Partners for Affordable Housing. For anyone who's not familiar, we have been in operation for just under 30 years. We have 468 units of housing. 10 of properties are multifamily housing. We have 6 single-family homes. We currently have 12 staff, and even this year we had a lot of volunteers, and in most years we have over 100 volunteers. COVID notwithstanding, we still had a lot of support from the community. We have a very active board, operating budget of about 1.3 million, and a really great, if I can say so myself, affordable housing development team here. We just finished the Red Rock, as you mentioned, the Red Rock Creek Commons project, also in the Tigard Triangle. Rachel's been our executive director for about 5 years now. I joined SEPA 3 years ago. Rachel joined us last year. The design team for this project is LRS Architects, and Colas Construction is the general contractor that we will be working with. Both LRS and Colas have extensive experience in affordable housing development, contracting, compliance, all of the things that we look for in a strong team. Just wanted to share, this slide is just to share a few of our most recent developments in the, I think that's the top left corner. I think that is the Knoll. And then the other, there's in the bottom right is Cedar Grove. And the other 2 pictures are Red Rock Creek Commons. So those are some of our recent developments in your neck of the woods, so to speak. And they look very nice, I think. Really proud to be a part of an organization that develops affordable housing that is also with the eye on aesthetics. And I will let Rachel Lofton take it from here for a little bit.
Hi, just to tell you a little bit about the proposed project, we're going to be developing off of the Torchwood Avenue area, which is a very lovely little residential area tucked in near commercial. SEPA has an exclusive, sorry, it's a little late, folks. An exclusive negotiating agreement with the owner of the property that was struck back in 2020. The design for the project is going to respond to community need, which has shown that we really need affordable housing in the Tigard area, especially family size units. So a little bit about the area housing needs. Over half of Tigard residents are currently paying more than 30% of their income in housing cost every year, and 1/3 earn less than $35,000 a year, which is 60% of area median income for a 2-person household. Affordable and workforce housing opportunities are greatly needed in Tigard, and currently jobs outnumber the available housing. The site is very close to several grocery stores and a short distance from public transportation. And SEPA has been working very closely with organizations along the corridor to ensure that the project meets community needs. So a little bit about this project. We're projecting that it's going to have 42 units of housing, including 4 4-bedrooms, 16 3-bedrooms, 18 2-bedrooms, 4 1-bedrooms, and 4 studios. All of the units are going to be restricted to 60% AMI and below. Amenities are going to include a community room, and will have a robust resident services and potentially permanent supportive housing units within the property. SEPA was recently accepted and made it through the PSH Institute that Oregon Housing and Community Services put on. We've been participating in that for the last 12 months.
So this is from LRS. This is our kind of test fit to see what we could fit on this site. As you can see to the south, we will be extending Torchwood and stubbing it out on the other side of the street for potentially to link in for future development of that apartment complex. So this is just kind of how it lays out right now. It's probably going to change. Likely right now you can just see kind of 2 rows of parking. In all likelihood, there will be a parking circulation through, kind of looping a one-way parking lot. I don't know why I'm struggling with the word lot there. So we'll have offices, bike rooms, community space. We're going to have some extra, hopefully some extra office space for some of our community partners. Having this many large bedroom sizes is really, it's challenging to do as an affordable housing developer, but it really does meet the stated goals of family housing and or multi-generational housing. When we have reached out to community partners, when we have partnered with the Southwest Corridor, the Southwest Equitable Development Strategy, I think I got that acronym right. You know, the feedback has consistently been that there are just not enough places for low-income families to live. And oftentimes, you know, low-income families are people that have, you know, 2 working parents and are paying more than half of their income in rent and other housing costs. So this is kind of our response to that, all of the feedback that's been given in the Southwest Corridor. We are definitely taking an eye to cultivate some outdoor space, definitely have a play area. You know, what the actual landscape design is going to be is still a little bit in the air. Again, we have not acquired the site yet, so this is kind of a preliminary design. Oops. So the schedule, we are planning to purchase the property in the second quarter of 2021. The property has been approved by the Planning Commission for the zone change. So it's currently zoned R12. It'll be upzoned to R25. I think, and the City Council also approved that. And so I think we are still technically in the appeal period at the moment, but that was really exciting. It was one big lot, and so it's been partitioned into 3 lots. SEPA is looking at acquiring the lot that is zoned for residential. We are putting together an application for an allocation of 9% low-income housing tax credits. That application is due at the end of April. That notification for April submissions to OHCS, or Oregon Housing Community Services, will likely be July or August, after which there's about a 12-month development phase where we are putting our schematic design and construction documents together, getting permits, you know, forming the partnership, negotiating pricing, that kind of thing. And then we estimate about a 12-month construction phase. So assuming that we are allocated tax credits in this cycle, the anticipated completion date would be August of 2023. And we will be using some, hopefully, the Tigard Urban Renewal Area funds, some Metro bond funding. We've heard that there's going to be a little bit of gap financing available from them, and then, of course, the tax credits and gap from the state of Oregon, as well as hard debt. So that is a little bit of sums up our project, and we would love to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Rachel, Jillian, and Rachel. It was great to hear about this project. Really exciting, and I'm sorry to keep you waiting, to have kept you waiting. Any questions from commissioners about this? It's an exciting project, I think. Elise, go ahead.
Hi, Rachel and Jillian.
Hi, Elise.
How many stories will this be? Are you going to the 4-story limit to accommodate this many units?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, because I understand that that's about the minimum that you can go if you're putting elevators in to make it feasible economically. So, and then you had also commented on going for gold status, Earth Advantage Gold.
Yes.
Now, that's different than the LEED standards, correct?
They're very similar. They're
very similar.
Quite frankly, the Earth Advantage program is a little bit easier to navigate and get through. Time commitment wise, and the standards are very similar. Our two most recent projects, including Red Rock Creek Commons, committed to gold and achieved platinum Earth Advantage certification. So we're very conscientious of being good stewards of the earth, as well as developing housing.
Well, thank you. And I've always admired your buildings, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Goodhouse?
Yes, well, great project. I was just gonna say I have to log off for the night. So everyone have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councilor. Derek?
I just had a question. You had mentioned that the units themselves are large. Are you working to create units that are like 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath for families of 4 or 5 or 6?
Yeah. So
is that the goal?
The goal is to provide family housing, and while 2-bedroom units are considered family-size units, the real the lack of housing is in those large bedroom sizes. So I think there's 18 3-bedroom units planned and 4 4-bedroom units. The specific unit mix might change over time as we get a little bit into development, but definitely the goal of this development is to provide a lot of family housing.
And again, I want to underscore that's partly in response to what we heard from the community. So I probably, like some folks here in this meeting, went to maybe 3 years of meetings with groups along the corridor and heard a lot about the need for large family units. And so we really wanted to respond to what we heard.
And that's really good to hear. A lot of times when I see these or hear about them, it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath place, and there's families of 4, 5, or 6 that need this as well. So this is fantastic to hear.
Thanks, Derek. Justin.
Hi, thank you. Yes. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Jillian. So it's really great to hear this project. I've been following it pretty closely. It's just gonna come up in our housing subcommittee here, so I figure I have you guys here. I might as well, just because I'm going to have to bring it to you again as well in greater detail. But can you briefly answer to if there are any barriers to producing 80% AMI units?
Yeah.
Up to.
Yeah, I'm Justin, I'm happy to get into the weeds with you on that anytime, and nerd out over some spreadsheets. It's one of my favorite things. Ultimately, I think what you're talking about is the income averaging that became available with tax, one of the bills last year, so that you can blend, as long as your average unit count is 60%, you can actually have some units that go up to 80.
Correct.
The issue with that is the way that it's a very complicated implementation plan, and it unless it's extraordinary, unless you have a extraordinarily savvy property management company and you have that savvy property management for the entire 60-year duration, there's a high risk of falling out of compliance because of how that income averaging works. One of the things that happens when you do the income averaging is that typically the units are restricted, like unit 1 is always a 60% unit and unit 2 is always a 30% unit. Like whatever they're restricted to, they're always that way. With income averaging, those income restrictions actually can move around within the property. And so if you have someone who's over income, they will automatically be bumped into that higher band. But their rent isn't automatically raised to meet that. So there's a lot of different levers going around.
And we'll talk, we can always talk more about it because we agree in spirit that it makes sense to have units that can go up to 80%. Like we would like to be able to do that, but we also can't afford to have the IRS come in and say you owe us money because you're out of compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We will probably have to circle back and I will be in touch. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks. Derek, did you have something else? Your hand is raised. Okay. I'm guessing not. Anything else for our friends from SEPA? This has been really great. It's so exciting to know that you all are continuing to invest in affordable housing in our community. It's just such a huge priority for this commission. We have a subcommittee, as you just heard, that is dedicated itself to exploring affordable housing and how we as a commission can support it in the city. So the work you all are doing is completely aligned with that. And I just want to thank you very much for doing it and for being here tonight.
And thank you. And I wanted to just add that having pre-development funds available is really one of the things that is so generative. I mean, it really can generate a lot of affordable housing. It is where a lot of projects get stuck, is getting that initial financing, that initial bit of funding. And so to have that specifically set aside for that phase of development, I just want to commend you on doing that and being really in Washington County a leader in supporting affordable housing.
Thank you. Well, you are really a leader in affordable housing, and we understand that need for the upfront. And you have a track record to prove it. So thanks so much, and we'll look forward to being in touch with you again. Elise, did you have something else?
Just asking Sean a question, if he needs any recommendations from our TCAC tonight to bring forward.
Oh, we were going to plan to do that next month. So the next meeting, we'll ask for your recommendation to the board, and then the board will consider approving a development agreement.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Take care. Okay. Moving into agenda item 9, the City Center Substantial Amendment Update. Sean, go for it.
Yeah, we're running a little behind time. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but just, on the 23rd, council did approve the ballot title, and I put that ballot title language in your packet. So that's what's going to appear in that voters pamphlet that you get, along with a longer explanation that also has to be factual. And then just to let you know, we have a public education plan that we're rolling out or in the middle of rolling out. We're going to be talking to a lot of the city boards and commissions. We've scheduled time with PRAB and the Youth Advisory Council and CCE. I think maybe the library board too, just to get the word out. And also some, outside organizations like the Chamber and the Rotary Club. And we're going to be looking for inviting council members to do some of those speaking roles, since, as was mentioned before, they can be explicitly pro amendment. But if for some reason a council member can't be there, then it would be staff or perhaps a TCAC member, if you're interested, just presenting factual information. We'll be doing social media, just letting people know about it. Probably an insert in the newspaper, and we're providing a speaker kit for anyone who's going to be speaking to these groups. And yeah, as I mentioned, that video too. It'll be animated. We made a video for the 2017 Tigard Triangle Urban Renewal Plan. I think it turned out pretty well. Really kind of broke down what urban renewal was in simple terms. So we'll be doing something very similar to that this year. Are there any questions? Okay, I'm seeing none.
Anyone? Okay. Thanks, Sean. That's helpful. I'll definitely benefit from that kit or whatever you mentioned.
Speaker kit. Yeah.
Speaker kit. Thank you. Yes. Great. That will come in handy. Okay.
And just if there is any commissioner who is interested in speaking out in some way, let me know, and we can figure something out.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so subcommittee updates. Do we have reps from the 3 subcommittees that could provide just a brief update as to where things stand with your subcommittee, what you've been up to? Have you met? What are you focusing on, talking about, etc.? Let's try to keep it brief if we can, just to make up some time, but don't sell yourself short. Justin, go ahead. Justin, you unraised your hand. Are you going? Okay, great. Excellent.
So we could just skip down to slide 6. Okay, so we really we met on actually this Monday. We've been trying to get together and coordinate our schedules, and it just happened to be this Monday that we could get together and meet over Zoom. And it was Derek and Tom Murphy and myself, and we had a very productive evening, productive talk. And we kind of brought to the meeting what we found within the previous plans, but also within the affordable housing plan for the Tigard's housing strategy implementation plan. And what we found was that there was an extraordinary high income level in the city of Tigard at $98,000 a year for the median income level in the city of Tigard, and the average level of income in the city in Oregon State is $68,000 a year, I believe. And so through looking through the plan and noticing that the plan identifies up to 80% area median income over and over again, we've felt we wanted to go down the path of acknowledging this community of people as the missing middle, and kind of do some research, as you heard from SEPA, into the barriers to producing these up to 80% area median income units to produce a more impartial and affordable housing units. And what is meant by that is more equitable access to affordable housing units to a greater span of folks experiencing adverse effects from cost. Moving forward from that, we would really like to emphasize the ownership of homes. So we would like to invite Proud Ground. We know they're doing some work in River Terrace. So we'd like to invite them to come and talk to us to see if we can gather some information on how they acquire assets, and ask them if they ever would like to work with condos. So we would like to just take a deeper look at sections 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13 in Chapter 3.3 of the Affordable Housing Plan, and that's listed in the last point here. Joe has this for the record, so if anyone needs it, I can email it out to you, or Joe can email it out to you as well. And we would really like to just work with city staff to really identify if it's necessary to commission a survey of market rate residents to see if they, to get their voice on some of these adverse effects to high cost living and market rate housing. And it was really important to specifically Commissioner Derrick that we investigate some barriers to implementing community gardens or just open green spaces at affordable housings, because as he said so many times, we erect these buildings, but there's no real kind of green space for these residents to kind of call their own, to go outside and enjoy living in outdoors as if a homeowner would. And so those are just kind of some of the things that we are looking at tentatively. We are looking to narrow these goals down and bring that back to you with some final points.
Thanks, Justin. This is awesome. I'm super excited just to see this and the way you all have dug in. Kate, go ahead.
My update will be very quick. I don't think Adrian is on tonight. He and I have not had an opportunity to meet, but we'll try to do so in the next week, so that for the next meeting we will have some information on equitable development. And I think from some of it will be education that, you know, that I think one of the things that has been noted in previous TCAC meetings is that really understanding what is equitable development and having some education around it would be helpful. So scoping that out, finding some sources, and then bringing that to the entire commission so that we can all learn more about equitable development. So stay tuned for next meeting.
Thanks, Kate. That would be really awesome. And Justin, I want to say, if you're able to organize Proud Ground coming and speaking to the commission, I think everyone would really welcome that. So let's, maybe you and I coordinate on that, or you and Sean and I, or something. Elise, go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to let Justin know also that there is a legislative bill coming down the pike right now called SB 79 that is going to support first-time home buyer loans for BIPOC community. And we're finding out that information through our social justice arm at our parish. And then I have a brief report on our connectivity subcommittee that met last Thursday. That's Chris, Hemendra, Ryan, and myself. We talked about the upcoming transit changes with the consolidation of routes 93 and 94 to 94 only with 30-minute weekend service. And Ryan's going to follow up at TriMet to find out a little more about other routes running from downtown Tigard through the Triangle and find out what other services, where they will connect to and what they will connect to. We also talked about walkability and safety on Hunziker and 72nd, and transportation planner Dave Roth said that the planning for Hunziker Street will also include bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides. Economic developer Lloyd Purdy said that the industrial development on Wall Street in the future will also increase freight traffic in the area, and he's giving us some more information on that. The 72nd Avenue Interchange is that bridge going over Highway 217 is a $300 million project that's going to take a lot of planning and coordination with ODOT. Also, the Red Rock Creek Trail that is in planning is a huge opportunity to connect to the regional trail going over I-5 that heads into Lake Oswego. And we also can potentially connect the Red Rock Creek Trail to the Metzger neighborhood so that they can have better access potentially at 68th or 69th. And Hemendra will follow up on that trail connection process. And then Chris is going to look into the connection of the Fano Creek extension. And Chris, does that include the Heritage Trail connection as well? And how we're going to get those connected? And so I think that's sort of where we're at right now. And then hoping to schedule another meeting with everybody's different schedules. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Justin and Kate as well. That was great. That was our first subcommittee update of 2021. It's very exciting. I just want to say I really appreciate the energy everyone is putting into those subcommittees, recognizing that it is additional time and energy from each of you, but hopefully your passion for what we're trying to accomplish here makes it easy to get involved. So thanks a lot. It's exciting. I think we're gonna be able to accomplish some meaningful things and make some recommendations that will be really of value to the TCDA and city staff. So thanks for the extra effort. Liaison reports. Do we have any? Parks and Rec Advisory Board, TCAC. I think those were the two main ones. Kate, go ahead.
We did have a meeting of the Senior Affordable Housing Advisory Commission last week and got an update on pretty much the final configuration of Sierra Architects took us through the design and where it will sit on the property, and that was attended by Fayez and myself, and obviously Sean. We have someone from the neighborhood group. We have people that are from Meals on Wheels and the Senior Center. So, and we've been working together throughout the project. So this was a really good update, and continuing to move forward. The funding is in place, and final, we're not the final drawings yet, but that will be kind of the next step, is to actually execute build documents after a few more things are worked out. But they have tried to maximize parking. That was one of the big issues for the neighborhood, was the parking situation. So they have maximized the number of parking spaces that they can accommodate. They've also moved the building closer to the church, away from the residential area, and they have done a step down to accommodate the slope. So a lot of work has been done, and it continues to move forward. Sean, they have now signed the agreement with the city for the property, correct?
Yeah, that's right. The board approved the development agreement in November. Yep. It's been executed.
Yep. So continuing to move forward, we'll have another meeting probably in May, I believe, and I'll update you at that point.
Thank you, Kate. Justin, go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to add, I forgot to say that we talked about how the city of Tigard has removed so many boundaries to developing affordable housing that we really looked at our scope of where to go next in distant future. So we definitely think that the city of Tigard is leading the region in development of affordable housing, removing barriers. And so we were just really looking at where we can go at advising the TCDA next. Okay.
Thanks, Justin. Joe, go ahead.
We had a update on the Main Street, Green Street phase 2 last week. The barrier, the landscape barrier there on, let me see, I think it was Commercial Street. They used the wrong transportation model, and they discovered that larger trucks could not make that turn. So it's kind of gone away. So that landscape barrier, but they are planning some other things, some kind of a smaller median for pedestrians on Commercial Street. And then the driveway from the dry cleaners, there was mention, I don't remember if it was at the TCAC meeting or the TCAC meeting, there's mention about restricting left turns there. They can be more restrictive, but there's not a whole lot they can do about that exit driveway. They have to leave it as it is, pretty much.
Thanks, Joe. I don't believe we actually have fully settled on liaisons to the TCAC and the PRAB, unless I missed something, which is entirely possible. Are there folks that would be interested in serving in that role?
Ryan,
Yes.
Someone did volunteer last month. I don't remember who it was, to go to the TTEC meetings. I'd have to go back and look in my notes. Sorry, I don't have them handy at the moment.
Sean, do you have any record of that?
We could ask Joe to listen back to that in the recording.
Yeah, I can go back. There was a little bit of discussion. It was kind of scattered at that point, but I'll go back and listen, and I'll relay that to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Joe. Similarly,
unless that person is here.
Unless that person is here. Yeah. The PRAB too, I'm not sure we actually landed on a liaison, so that might be an open opportunity for someone that might be interested in that, it seems. So we'll bring it up at the next meeting, and hopefully we can settle on liaisons if there are any to be had. Otherwise, we can make other accommodations, I assume, to ensure that we get, looped into what they're up to. Okay, we don't have any non-agenda items, I don't believe. Anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn? Okay, well, I really appreciate all of your time tonight. It's nice to be with you and talk about all these exciting developments in our city, and look forward to seeing you next month. If there are things you want to bring up or suggest for our next agenda, please feel free to reach out to me or Scott or Sean, and we'll see you next month. Meeting adjourned.